Happy Friday, Chicago. Today we are going to dig deep on our feelings about Patrick Kane and his time in Chicago and why it is so hard for us to let go of this Blackhawks legend. Also, some other stuff. Stay tuned to the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast on this beautiful Chicago Friday. For now, it's going to rain later, but that's fine. I'm Jay Zawoski. That's
Hello.
Mario Tirabassi. Steven has descended from on high to join us
every time
from the Bears podcast. He's got a full Bears uniform on right now, everybody. It's ridiculous.
helmet and all.
Yeah,
Just to remind us where his priorities lie. But we're here. We're doing the show. It's exciting. Do us a favor. Hit that like button for us. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube page as well. If you're listening on the podcast, follow, subscribe, like, review. How about for the weekend you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify?
As many stars for Ryan Poles' new contract.
That's it.
5 stars for 5 years.
There you go. That is the official emergency podcast about the Ryan Poles contract extension. You heard it here first on CHGO Blackhawks. So this is Mario's idea. I'm going to let him introduce the concept. And I see some people in the chat saying this should be fun. We're going to not talk about the logistics of Kane coming back, how it would impact a rebuild. We're having a feelings show.
This is not an analytical discussion.
It is not. It is a Friday feels show.
We're in our feelings.
And when Mario presented this idea to me this afternoon, I said, I like this a lot. It feels like a fun stretch your legs Friday topic. So, Mario,
yeah,
the floor from Empire today is yours. That's a free one.
That's a good one. So, if you've been online as a Blackhawks fan this week,
sorry,
you've seen the interviews that Patrick Kane has done with Barstool Sports as well as ESPN 1000. Well, they're partners.
Got a chair right there.
And so, he did some rounds, and he had a lot of conversations about his time in Chicago. How he left the organization, being in Detroit, all the stuff you'd expect to hear, and it's been clipped and shared and all that stuff. And over the course of the last couple of days, and honestly, since Patrick Kane has been out of Chicago, just the sentiments of who's do you blame Kyle Davidson? Do you blame, for some reason, Jamie Faulkner?
That's her fault.
Do you blame Patrick Kane and say, well, if he wanted to be here, he would have never accepted a trade? And all that there's a lot that we've sifted through over the years, but something that I think I've just kind of been thinking about the last couple of days is, for me, I feel like my section of millennial, we have this thirst for nostalgia. We have this thirst for a world that doesn't exist anymore and that you can't go back to. And I think, when it comes to Patrick Kane specifically, now taking that broad thing and narrowing it down, I was 17 when Patrick Kane became a Blackhawk, right? And, we're roughly the same age. I've seen his whole career in Chicago and beyond, and experienced his time being one of the greatest Blackhawks ever, 3 Stanley Cups. The list goes on and on. And there is a nostalgia for having Patrick Kane be a Blackhawk, should have been his whole career. It's hard to argue about that, but things change as time goes on. But I think back to, okay, and this conversation has kind of been happening in Maple Leaf circles with Mitch Marner and how he's exited the organization. If you were 8 or 9 when Patrick Kane jumped into the league and became a Blackhawk alongside Jonathan Toews, like that is very likely your hockey hero.
Yeah.
You're the guy that brought you into the sport, brought you into the Blackhawks, not just for people based in Chicago and Blackhawks fans, but for kids around the globe of hockey players that look up to him and you know, have that attachment to him being the Blackhawks, being in the timeline of success that they had and everything. Vaclav Nestersil has said that Patrick Kane's his favorite player.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, there's pictures of him wearing Jonathan Toews t-shirts and all that stuff. So now fast forward, this is what, 18 years since Kane has started. If you were 8 or 9 when Patrick Kane was starting in the league, you're now 27, 28, 29 years old. And you might be married. You might have a family. I'm not specifically talking about young Dangle God, but that is like the quintessential person that like kind of fits into this box.
Yes.
And it's that like, I think it's that generational like thirst for nostalgia that fuels this like the back and forth that there's been surrounding Patrick Kane since he's left the organization of who's to blame, who can I be mad at, do I shake my fist at the organization,
Yeah.
do I shake my fist at Kyle Davidson, you know, all that stuff, and to me it just kind of is like, you know what, I get it, like I get that sentiment, and we were talking about this before the show started, and you know, with your experience with like Jeremy Roenick,
Yeah.
and you know, Walter Payton and all that. And 100%. I know
100%.
Payton never played with anybody else, but you know, it's that feeling of like, this was my sports hero. I don't want to think of them any different way.
Yeah. So you're totally correct. And I think the thirst for nostalgia comes, I think every generation has that, but I think yours especially has that because the millennials have lived through a lot of trauma. Like, you know, like I'm not getting political here. We know what we're talking about. The things that societally have started happening within the last 20 years.
Days that end in wine.
The changing, school shooting drills, which I never had to go through. And like, so everyone is longing for a simpler time. And I think half the country is like, I want to go back to when it was normal for me. Like everyone has that kind of feeling about what's going on. So that's normal. I also think too, with your generation, and it's mine too, but especially with yours and younger, because of social media, there is this desire for there always to be, this is the villain, this is the hero,
black and white.
It is, and whose fault is it? Who am I going to be mad at? I will die on this hill that I need to be mad, when in reality, everything is gray, especially when it comes to sports transactions and contracts and those sort of things, and, you know, trying to navigate a rebuild. And it's not just like Kyle Davidson said, I don't want Patrick Kane here. It's over. We're moving on. We're moving past Patrick Kane. No, it was, look, I need to get this team as bad as it can possibly get. Patrick Kane being here makes us too good and too competitive. So we got to move on and let him move on to the next part of his career where he can win and all those sort of things. But it's the desire for nostalgia, and it's the desire to have someone to blame immediately without just saying, hey, you know what, it didn't work out for various reasons, which is usually the truth. It's nuance. And as Sprout 69 points out, nuance is hard. That's true.
It is, yeah.
But for me, like you mentioned Walter Payton. When I was 7 when the Bears won the Super Bowl. So to me, Walter Payton is and was larger than life. When Mongo passed away, I posted a photo of me and my sister and Mongo at my uncles owned a butcher shop together, and Mongo and Keith Van Horn came to the opening. And I had to be, 7 or 8 years old, and we got to talk to him for like the hour before the store opened. And I just peppered those two guys with questions about Walter Payton. Yeah. It's like, so like, does he really wear Ruse? Like, does he wear other shoes? Like, oh no, he loves Ruse. I'm like, oh, that's cool. He's really fast, huh? They're like, yeah, Walter's really fast.
Just
like, yeah.
Essentially Chris Farley.
I was seriously like, just doing, and like they could not have been cooler about it because I was a kid, but that's all I wanted. It's all I cared about. And then like, people a little bit younger than me with Michael Jordan I remember being on the score when Bernstein and Boers would sort of talk about Jordan in any sort of negative light. There was a huge percentage of the audience that was like, how can you say that about MJ?
Yeah.
He's the great. And all these things are correct. But it is just kind of that you want the feelings back that person brought you.
Right.
Right. And I think especially when you go from pretty quickly winning championships to sucking, you really, really want that back. And when you're struggling to find the light at the end of the tunnel, you just want that back. And I think, look, would Patrick Kane help the Blackhawks now? I think so. Yes, I think had he signed in Chicago this offseason, it would not have been the craziest thing in the world. But he's trying to win. Understandable. The Hawks are trying to move on. Understandable. I really do think, though, it is just these players and these moments are so ingrained in your life that it's hard to look at them through the lens of 10 years later or 15 years later.
Right.
Or, in my case with the 85 Bears, 40 years later. You know what I mean? To me, those guys are still superheroes. And if, Richard Dent or Mike Singletary walked in here, I would turn into that 8-year-old kid again because, oh my God, that's an 85 Bear. That's a different level of hero for me.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't think about it when you're like in the moment of at some point this is going to end kind of thing. Trust me, after the 10, 13, and 15 cups, my early 20s, mid 20s brain was just like, keep the good times rolling.
Right.
We're gonna do this a couple more times. No, haven't won an actual playoff series since 2015.
Right.
And I think that it's kind of like when we talk about with when we went to DNVR at the start of the 22-23 season. They had just come off the Stanley Cup win for the Avs. They were opening night. We were out there and told them, look, you guys are set up for a lot of success. It's not guaranteed.
Nope.
You have to enjoy it. And I think that is something that ties into this is that you kind of think back to those moments and those times, you think back, we just through the month of June, it's so nostalgic for, Kane's Stanley Cup winner in 2010.
Oh yeah,
the 17 seconds.
Moment.
It's just so much that and then it conjures up that 10 years ago, this is how I felt, and this is who made me feel that way, and it tugs at those strings, and it's just like, you know what, son of a biscuit that he's a Detroit Red Wing, and
that doesn't help.
Yeah,
that's an extra kick in the
nuts.
nuts.
If he was still with the Rangers, it'd be like, okay, sure, fine.
Right.
But yeah, because it's Detroit and it's continuously been Detroit, it kind of it steps into that realm where you're just like, it's that extra layer. But it harkens back to just wanting to feel like, for me, a lot of it is just like, I just want to feel like that 20-year-old version of myself that was, world responsibilities were completely different, and the Hawks, that excitement was there, and they were stacked with guys, and it's hard to, and maybe we can step into this after the break zone, but it's hard to then sometimes shift those feelings and those memories to the next generation, the next person. And I think there's a lot of people that are all in on Bedard, and rightfully so, should be. But then there's some people that are just like, well, he hasn't made me feel that way yet, that a guy like Patrick Kane or Jonathan Toews or that group made me feel, so I'm not on board with him yet. And I think it's a hard thing to kind of do for people in our age group. But at the same time, there's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds that are getting into hockey because of Bedard, the same way that they did with Kane 20 years ago.
I mean, you go to any sort of local arena, or you just walk around the city or a mall. We were downtown a couple weeks ago for my father-in-law's birthday. We did the river cruise, and just walking down Michigan Avenue, kids between 5 and 10 with Bedard jerseys. I saw a whole family leave the Blackhawks store and like literally on the street pulled a Bedard jersey out and like, you want to wear this now? It's really hot. He's like, I'm wearing it now.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, so it is there, and we are gonna hit the break zone. I like that. I like where you're going with that angle. So we'll get to that next on CHGO Blackhawks. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. It's my home and your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. Whether you're a noob, whether you're a vet, they've got you squared away at Sunnyside. I was having trouble sleeping a couple years ago. Walked into Sunnyside, said, hey, I need some help. I don't know what I'm doing. Please advise. And they said, you need these good news counting sheep gummies. I take a half one or maybe 3/4, depending on my brain, and it knocks me out for the night. Wake up not feeling groggy at all. It's wonderful. So if you need help in any part of your life, check out Sunnyside. Visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Use the promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois MedCard holders. And if you've used that code before, and if you have, thank you. If you're an existing customer, use promo code CHGO50 for 50% off one Cresco Labs brand item.
And it is hot.
Yes.
You are probably sweating at some point of every day, and
Correct.
if you are sweating, you are probably stinky. Well, you won't be if you have Mando. What is Mando? It's whole body deodorant that can go head to toe. It's good for your pits, your balls, your thigh folds, your belly button, your butt's crack, and your feet. Created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal body odor was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. It's clinically proven to be better than just a shower with soap alone. There's just so much I want to tell you about Mando. Their 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar is shampoo, face wash, body wash, and deodorant all in one. It saves space in your bag and saves you embarrassment from your stink. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. Comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice and free shipping. And with the code CHGO at shopmando.com, you get 20% off site-wide. Support our show, smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. All right, and before we jump back into the conversation, we're going to go to this new segment here from our friends at Arena Club called Cards from the Vault. If you're not familiar with Arena Club, it's the coolest, newest way to trade, grade, and rip open packs of cards with Arena Club. What's really cool is that they tell you the percentage chance of getting each card in their different packs. Right. So it's transparent. You know exactly what you're stepping into when you get the pack online. And right now you can get 20% off of your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/CHGO and using the code CHGO. So we're going to dive into it here. I'm going to share my screen here with you lovely folks and with Steven here. We'll do the magic of television. All right. Are we ready to open my slab? I went with football. So they have
magic of television.
They have a lot of different things you can do: football, basketball, baseball, and Pokemon. I went with football again because it's the easiest one for me to know. So we're opening the pack. I got Marv Levy last time. Oh, Joe Burrow. He's a current player. That really helps me understand the coolness of this. This is a 2020. What is it here? A 2020 Panini Chronicles Prism Black Silver, which I'm told is actually pretty cool. I don't know a lot about cards, but with Arena Club, I get to kind of experience, opening these packs, finding these really cool cards, all the different levels that they have. You can start at $25. You can go all the way up to their gold, their platinum. Like it's a very cool process. My friend Eric Andrews, who's very into cards. He was with us when we were at the National Card Collectors Convention.
That was fun. Got to hang out with Yager.
He told me a little bit about this card. It's actually a really cool. The PSA 10 grade is actually what you want to look for. So that was our segment from Arena Club, Cards from the Vault. So now in my showroom, I have Joe Burrow and Marv Levy. I've got a good start to my organization here. I got a great coach, good quarterback. Maybe I'd get a Ryan Poles contract extension card next, and we'll really be cooking.
Once again, that's part 2 of our emergency podcast on the Ryan Poles extension.
Yeah.
All right.
Back to
our
discussion
fields.
at hand.
We've got a super chat here from Captain Cormac. Let's get to that real quick. He says, as a 36-year-old, I decided to embrace the change and bought a Bedard jersey. I loved those Cup teams, but life moves on. The future is bright.
That's a quote directly from Artem Levshinov.
It's a very mature Way to look at things, Captain.
Yeah, and I think, like, yeah, I think, the point you were making about, like, this will be an opportunity for a lot of fans to see what's coming this season is spot on. I mean, a lot of people that are diehard Blackhawks fans now started in 08, 09, 2010 because that team got so good and had success. And I think there was a comment in there about, having a lot of young players and young promise is great, but it's the success that actually cements people in to that fandom. So, this year I don't think we're expecting a lot of that kind of success, but I think it's going to be that first example of these are the new guys that you want to, get invested in as fans.
And nothing's more fun than competing and winning Stanley Cups, of course.
Oh, yeah.
The playoffs are the best. But watching this all unfold, which this will really be the first year where there's a lot of young pieces as part of the thing, and you get to watch them mature on the job, like, that's very exciting too. And I think, as you mentioned, a lot of Hawks fans that were 7, 8 had no really frame of reference with the Hawks before Taves and Kane, because there's no point in that. They sucked for a decade, so why would there be any interest? So they jumped on when things got good, which is fine. They didn't get to see Keith and Seabrook struggling in their first couple years. You could tell they were going to be good players, but I don't think anyone envisioned Duncan Keith as the greatest defenseman in the franchise of the history, arguably.
Right, yeah.
And Brent Seabrook as a borderline Hall of Famer. Like, I don't think anyone saw anything close to that from those kind of guys, from those two guys. So the development part is fun. And if you're a Cub fan, I always think back to, like, when Chris Bryant was in Iowa and Javi was in Iowa, or like even like Arizona Fall League, you'd get somebody's cell phone video of a Chris Bryant home run. You're like, oh my God, that is
I remember
it's so exciting.
The excitement of Chris Bryant's like first MLB game.
Yeah,
like, I remember living in the city and like being like, oh, something like this is exciting. It was like having these guys come up.
I was at Rizzo's first game. I missed his first hit because Addie needed a snack, which is fine.
It happens.
But
kids like snacks.
Sounds like you're over it.
I know. But but it's part. I want to encourage, and I think the people that are with us every day, we know they're on board. They are obsessed with the Hawks. They're tuning into a Hawks podcast on July 11th. Obviously, they're very committed. But just in general, the more casual Hawks fans to I don't want to say embrace the losing, but embrace this era where you're going to see a lot of guys who, when this team is good again, are going to be big contributors to that success. And it's not just Bedard. It's not just Nazar. Just think of how the end of last season felt with Renzel coming up and Levshinov coming up and Moore and Green.
Post-trade deadline to the end of last season, that month and change was like a completely different atmosphere.
But even like the last 2 or 3 weeks felt like the vibes had been totally shifted. And you saw these guys come in and debut and look the part and look ready. And I think next year, while there's going to certainly be some growing pains from this team, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. How good is Renzel going to be right away? Can Levshinov play the entire season in Chicago? Who's going to take that open roster spot for a young winger? That, to me, is what makes the last 3 years of getting to this point worth it.
Right.
Because now we're finally about to see the fruits of that labor, of that suffering and the tanking and all that stuff. Now you're going to see, okay, they're starting to arrive, and they all look pretty good so far. It can be a very exciting team if you just kind of look at it from the perspective of, this is ground floor, and I can't wait to see what this core becomes.
Yeah, and I think there was, there wasn't that sentiment back in 2005, 2006, 2007, because it was quote unquote more of the same with the Hawks at that time. And it was, that was still within that like dark ages time frame. And even though you had like young guys coming up and coming through, they weren't even the way that the way that we talk about sports is completely flipped on its head from 20 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And it's, you know, broadcasts of sports are different. You're on a sports podcast that goes 5 days a week that didn't exist 20 years ago. Social media, the instant reaction, the instant analysis, you know, highlights go viral instantly, whether it's Connor Bedard doing a Michigan goal or a former hockey player beating up a drunk guy on a golf course. You know, you're not beholden to your sports information coming from your nightly news podcast or broadcast, or from watching Sports Center before you go to school in the morning. Like, it's completely changed. So with the Hawks, like, at that time, there were young guys coming up, but there was no conversation about, like, well, this Duncan Keith could be a guy. This Brent Seabrook could be someone.
Right.
You know, it was just like, these kids can't play.
Right.
And more of the same. You know, the vitriol towards the Hawks was still there. You know, they were ranked as the worst franchise in all of sports.
And they were.
In 2004. And it's completely different now, 20 years later, where you're talking about, okay, you look through the prospect list and you're like, who's going to be here? Who's going to be the guys that are going to shoulder the future? And there's excitement about finding that out. And you know what? There's going to be excitement about finding out who's not going to be here, because it's not going to be everybody. They're not going to have a playoff roster that is 20 draft picks. That just doesn't happen. Eventually there will be trades and free agents signed and things like that, and guys that you really like might not pan out, might not be here. There were people that really loved Martin Havlat, and he wasn't around for the Cups. You know, there were people that really, you know, I think there's going to have to be some of that ruthlessness. And someone in the chat was mentioning, like, look at Vegas. Like, they are almost overly disloyal, like ruthless, no ties to anybody, basically. And they've been a contender basically every year. Yep. They've won a cup, and it's just been like, this is how you do business. If you want to be a winner, you have to do business like that. And I think, you know, I think at some point, whether it's Kyle Davidson or somebody else, there's going to be a point where the organization of the Blackhawks has to find out who's going to be here, who's going to be a winner, and who's not. And that's going to be an exciting, you know, process. It's going to come with some losses, some frustrations, but that's all part of, like, how you build a winning organization. Yeah,
and look, we're not, and I want to, Sprout69 had a good comment that I want to get to after the break zone. He mentioned the Red Wings. If you want to start that one, Steven, thank you. Not as high as we are on all these Kyle Davidson picks, they're not all going to hit.
No,
they can't. I mean, it's just not going to, you know, there's going to be some guys
it's not
who,
statistically possible.
well, you know, if you squint really hard, maybe Sasha Boisvert can be a second-line center. Well, maybe the reality is he's a really good fourth-line center.
Could be.
And that's fine. And Paul Ludwinski, we talked about earlier in the week, is like, you know, second-round pick, but maybe a bit of a reach, didn't really pan out. He'll be more of a Rockford guy, called up in a pinch. Like, there's going to be some of that. There's also going to be some guys that hit unexpectedly. Like, I think that is in the cards for Nick Lardis, who had 70 goals last year, and I don't think anyone was projecting him as a top-6 winger, but I don't think that's out of the question now based on the performance he had in junior last year. So it's what you do with and this is what, as we've talked about a lot, is what remains to be seen with Davidson, is can he fill those spots that don't get filled by draft picks with top free agents. But I think now that the stress of free agency and all the lead up to free agency is kind of dissipated, it was 10 days ago, you know, you can kind of zoom out and say, all right, now he's using this season and probably next to evaluate some of these young forwards to see, all right, who is really going to be a part of this thing long term, and what are the spots I think I'm going to have to fill. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. We're going to get the Sprouts comment after this timeout. Do us a favor, hit that like button. We have 69 likes. Oh, up to 70. So close. Well, let's try to get over 100 by the time the show ends. We'll be back in 2 minutes on CHGO Blackhawks. It can be tough to find the best tickets for the best events you're looking for. That's why we use Game Time. They've got those great last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. They've got zone deals, so you can choose a section and let them find the best seats for you. Hey, you want to go to tomorrow's White Sox game for the Mark Burley replica statue? $18 gets you in the door. It just changed. $17 gets you in the door. That's what we're talking about. Those
prices are dropping.
Zone deals. They're dropping as we speak. So go get yourself a Mark Burley replica statue, and you'll know exactly what it's going to look like from your seats because you get that panoramic view from the app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the Game Time app, redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
And whatever the sport, the app to bet it is Circa Sports Illinois. Circa Sports, it is sports betting the way that it should be. Circa Sports Illinois has high betting limits, low holds, and exceptional customer service. I've been told the best customer service around of any sports betting service. You can bet on all of your favorite teams in every game this season, including the White Sox this weekend. So if you go to the game, you can also bet on it with Circa Sports Illinois. Whether it's spreads, props, futures, in-game, and much more, Circa Sports has it. You can fund and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime in Illinois. That's in the city, in Chicagoland.
What about South Beloit?
You could do that.
Home of Sunnyside.
You could do that. You could walk out of Sunnyside, place your bet on Circa Sports, and have yourself a good day. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 or older. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, you or someone you know can call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, we're back. $10 super chat from Young Dangle God. I think his ears were ringing when this episode started. In all caps, re-sign Kaner 2026. I dare you, Kyle Davidson.
It says resign Kaner.
Yeah, it does say resign Kaner. I dare you, Kyle Davidson, unless you're too chicken because he's not 6 feet tall, I double dog dare you. So there you go. Young Dangle God throws in $10.
Thank you.
We appreciate that very much. So I want to get to Sprout's comment here. And he says, the risk of all of this and where people get angry is if the core doesn't work out. Look at the Red Wings. And that is a valid thing to point out because the Red Wings, they did do a full-scale rebuild. Jeff Blashill was there for it. I will say the difference, though, between the Hawks and Red Wings is the Red Wings have zero luck when it comes to the draft lottery.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go I'll do 11 years because it was Dylan Larkin. Larkin was 15th. Evgeny Svechnikov, 19th. Dennis Cholowski, 20th. Michael Rasmussen, 9th. Now we're getting in rebuild territory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Philip Zadina was 6th and a complete bust.
Mm.
Joe Veleno was 30th. Just got waived. Moritz Seider, really good player.
You hit on that one.
That was 6th, but that's a defenseman. Lucas Raymond, 4th. That's a hit. Simon Edvinson remains to be seen. Sebastian Kosa, nope. Marco Kasper was 8th. And then 2023, Nate Danielson hasn't played yet. Neither has Axel Sandin Pellikka. Nygaard last year at 15. Carter Bear this year at 13. So you like some of the recent picks, but none of these guys are top of the draft. Whereas with the Hawks, you've got Bedard 1, Levshinov 2, Frondell 3.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what was Korchinski was 7, right?
Korchinski was 7. Nazar was 13.
So, you've got higher pedigree draft picks. Now, again, are they going to work out? We don't know. But so far, the signs look pretty good that they're going to with that core of players. Yeah,
well, and you look at, not only the first-round picks with Detroit, right? But, you go to the 17 draft. Only 2 guys from that 17 draft class have played NHL games. Michael Rasmussen and Gustav Lindstrom. From the 2018 class, you got Zadina and Veleno were first-round guys. Only 2 other guys from that draft class besides those 2, Jonathan Berggren and Blackhawks legend Alec Regula, have played NHL games. You had a 32nd overall pick. Jared McIsaac has not played an NHL game. You had 2 second-round picks from the 2019 class that have never played an NHL game. that was Elmer Soderblom was drafted in 2019 by the Red Wings. Outside of Lucas Raymond from your 2020 draft class, only 2 players have played NHL games. And they've combined for 4 NHL games. Donovan Sebrango and Chase Bradley. You had William Wallander is there.
Meanwhile, the 2020 draft for the Hawks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 have seen NHL time.
Yeah. So I mean, so when you talk about when you go through these rebuilds and where guys end up, and you gotta at some point you gotta rip off the Band-Aid and be like, these are the young guys that are going to go forward, and these are the young guys. It's a lot to do with development. I don't know the ins and outs of the Red Wings development staff with Grand Rapids and so on and so forth, but you gotta eventually, if you're investing all these picks in these guys, you got to figure out what you got. And yeah, with Raymond and with Seider, and I would say even Edvinsson, you got 3 hits there. Like, those are really good picks. But what else do you have behind it? And I think that's the problem is they don't really have anything else behind those guys. Mm-hmm. No, there's still some players to kind of figure things out. But you look at what they've done the last few years with trades and free agency. They've invested in Patrick Kane a number of years, which he's still a solid player.
Yeah.
But he's not the old Patrick Kane who's going to put you over the top. They've invested, they've gone with Tarasenko, and they've gone with DeBrincat, and they've gone with a lot of like middle of the pack guys. They signed JVR this year. Like,
yeah,
it just seems like they're shooting for maybe trying to be in like the wild card race, and then making Dylan Larkin and Seider and Raymond like carry the load moving forward. So I think, yeah, I mean, there's different ways to go about it, but as the comment says, like, if they don't get a number of hits out of the draft, you might end up in that spot. And I think right now, as far as finding players through the draft, like, I'd trust Davidson and what he's done over the last 4 drafts to find a number of guys that are going to play in the NHL and move the team forward than 3 players that Detroit's had in the last 5, 6, 7 drafts that you're like, that's the guy that's going to help move the thing forward.
And I think Detroit is now to the point where if it doesn't start working soon, like, they don't make the playoffs this year, and if you look through the Eastern Conference, it's kind of hard to find their spot in, because some of the lesser teams of years past are starting to get better. Do they just have to do what Kyle Davidson did and say, we got to trade Larkin, we got to trade Raymond, we got to start this whole thing over again? Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I truly don't know. Like, can Detroit as an organization withstand another 10 years of really bad hockey? I don't know. Because at the end of the day, it is a business. And while Detroit was a very successful team in the 90s and 2000s, their success since then has not been great. Like, I don't know. I don't really know how are the Red Wings going to get out from where they are right now?
I think you gotta bank that, Seider and Raymond are like top 10 at their position, and they're close, but not really.
Seider's 24.
You gotta hope that
Raymond's 23. So you're gonna start finding out this year or next what is the ceiling of these guys.
Are they reaching a plateau, or is there more for them to do? Edvinsson, again, you got to figure out what he's going to be, but like a lot of positive signs with him there. Goaltending, they drafted Kosa, like you said, but what's he going to be at the NHL level? Because their goaltending is piecemeal. So, and Dylan Larkin's not getting any younger. Like, he's a good player. He's a very, very effective player, but if he's your top guy, you're not going anywhere. So, I don't know. They're not tanking, that's for sure. I don't know if you can just, and I was talking about this with Luis Medina, who was just on our Bears show from Bleacher Nation Bears, but I was just talking about, you can't, with the changing salary cap, and we saw it this offseason, free agency is going to be completely different moving forward.
Oh yeah.
You won't be able to rebuild a team through free agency anymore. I highly doubt that that's going to be the norm, because every team has more money now. So every team can now keep, like we saw the day before free agency, all those guys that was going, oh, look at, Bennett and Marchand and, all these guys stuck with their team.
The only people that hit free agency were Ehlers and Besser. And Besser went back to Vancouver.
Yeah, and Besser went back, yeah.
And Ehlers went to Carolina. Like Mitch Marner, I guess technically, but Vegas traded for his rights because they knew they were going to get him anyway.
Right.
So they got it done, and you're right. And I think it will eventually get back to where it was as everyone's salary catches up with the new CBA.
Sure.
But it's going to be 7 to 10 years before it feels like it has in the past, in recent history with free agency, where it gets back to that point where it does become a free agent frenzy. I think we're years away from another big free agent frenzy, because teams are just looking like, oh damn, we thought we might lose this guy, but now we can bring him back around,
right?
And that changes everything. So, just the next year's free agent class is a lot better, but we were sort of salivating over this one, and by the time July 1st came, nobody was available.
Right.
It was Rantanen, it was Marner, it was all these names, and then all of a sudden it's nobody.
Yeah.
It's nobody. So we will see. It's going to be I really wonder what Detroit's going to do, because I don't know if they can lure a big free agent. Is anyone chomping at the big to go to Detroit anymore?
Well, they're going to run out of money. If they keep spending on these mid-tier guys, they're talking about moving Andrew Kopp.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they signed Mikko Rantanen or Mitch Marner, does that make them significantly better?
Probably puts them closer to the
They're
playoffs.
probably a playoff team.
Yeah, puts them closer to being more of a sure thing for being in the playoffs. But in the East, are you contending with Florida? Are you contending with Tampa?
No,
I don't think so.
You're right. You really need Raymond and Seider, who are already. I will say both of them are great players. You need them to join the elite.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be potential Hall of Fame level dudes for this to turn around for Detroit. I don't
if
think
you're only banking on those guys, which
yes.
I don't think that they only are banking on that, but I think you're in a spot where it's just are they band-aiding things until this next couple of guys might jump up, but I don't know if Steve Yzerman's going to see the end of it.
All right, we've got 17 minutes left. Do you want to do the Jeff Blashill thing first, or do we want to make fun of the Sharks first?
I think we can do the Blashill thing.
Okay.
Because we've done a few segments on this show before, after Blashill was hired, about this topic.
So this came out yesterday. I saw this from We the Thunder on Twitter. It's a podcast about the Lightning, if you're interested in such things. This is a quote from Michael Sergachev. Mikhail, thank you. I was so afraid of calling him Svechnikov because I always get those guys mixed up.
Sergachev, former Tampa Bay Lightning.
Here's the quote.
Defenseman.
The coach from Detroit came in talking about Blashill. And, I mean, we had gone to 3 straight finals, and this guy comes in and says, quote.
Can I, before you get into this?
Yes.
Can I say, why is Jeff Blashill so forgettable?
Everyone forgets him.
Sergachev is the coach from Detroit. What's his name? Brendan Perlini was on our show. The guy from Detroit. I was in Detroit with Blashill.
I don't know. So he says,
okay.
The guy from Detroit comes in and says, quote, we're not playing like that anymore. We're playing like effing Vegas. And we're all like, why? And he goes, they have a better system. It'll work for us. Well, it didn't work for me, and it didn't work for anyone. Everyone ended up with a negative plus-minus. That's Mikhail Sergachev on Jeff Blashill changing the system in Tampa when he joined John Cooper's staff.
So it is an interesting choice to come into a team that just went to 3 Cup finals and try and change things. I'm not going to hold it against him that he thought, let's play like Vegas, because playing like Vegas has led them to a lot of success, a Stanley Cup. But playing like Tampa was playing has also led them to a lot of success and Stanley Cups. So it's an interesting choice to come in and switch that up. We've seen how here in Chicago, new coaches coming in and stubbornly changing systems has gone. when Jeremy Colleton took over for Joel Quenneville. He changed the system to his style and was not flexible enough to acknowledge, like, hey, it's not working with, the personnel I'm using, so I need to shift it up. I would like to think that, and it's hard for me to think about this because it apparently happened in Tampa, happened with Detroit, so it's going to give me a lot of encouragement. But I would like to think that, as Jeff Blashill has said since he's been hired by the Blackhawks, that he has had time to learn from his prior experiences and evolve as a coach and not try and change things for the sake of changing things and not try and be overreactive to things that do or do not work. I'd like to believe that he will understand that coming into this Blackhawks situation. And I also think he is embracing a more teacher development role as head coach here, given the personnel he's going to be given, rather than coming into an organization and an atmosphere in Tampa where it's like, we got to do everything we can to win now.
Yeah, and look, this has been we have heard this people from Detroit kind of said the same thing. Mm-hmm. And that is, I'm not going to say it's not a concern that he comes in and plays systems that don't work for the team, but I will say, I don't think Jeff Blashill walked into Tampa and said, John Cooper, this is the system we're playing. I'm changing it. We got to be like Vegas. No, this was clearly, you would think and hope, a decision reached via a team meeting with all the coaches saying, hey, we've been to Cup Finals. We're not having the success we want. We got to get over the hump. What can we change here? Then maybe we got to change the way we play defense. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I would think that John Cooper has something to do with it. Like when Anders Sorensen came in and took over for Luke Richardson, the system changed. Kevin Dean didn't say, no, this is my defensive system and we're keeping it this way.
Right.
John Cooper had to have say in whether or not the system changed. Now,
and Cooper kept Blashill there for 3 years.
Correct.
Yeah. I
mean, you don't win the cup every year. It's reality. And his whole thing about plus minus, okay, I'm not, again, it is something we need to keep an eye on, right? Is he going to put players in a position to win? I think you heard, Connor Bedard at the end of the year last year kind of praise Sorensen for letting him play his game a little bit and saying, hey, I didn't get yelled at every time I had a defensive lapse.
Right.
And I felt a little more comfortable. And obviously Connor Bedard was better under Sorensen than he was under Luke Richardson, but you hope that Blashill is a little bit more flexible than Richardson was in his system, because I think any coach, especially a guy with the experience that Jeff Blashill has, not just in the NHL, but in college and in minors and all those sort of things, like you've got to take a look at your roster and play the system that's going to fit the team you have. Mm-hmm. That's what Jeremy Colleton didn't do. He's like, let's see, I got Connor Murphy, Brent Seabrook, got a bunch of old guys who are slow.
Old bad hips, Brent Seabrook.
Yeah, let's do the man-on-man.
Yeah.
And have them chase people around the rink the whole game. Dumb. Yeah. That just doesn't make sense. So it's something to look out for. It's something to keep an eye on with Blashill. Obviously, he's not, in his prime Scotty Bowman, or he wouldn't have been available. He's not John Cooper. He's not going to be perfect, but those are the sort of things that, you look for when you evaluate a coach. Is like, is this guy too stubborn in his way? And I go back to our interview with him, and he said, one thing I've learned from my past jobs is you can't have a full-blown emergency when things start going bad a little bit. If you've got a bad stretch of 5 games, it's not wise to go changing the system and reinventing the wheel. You've got to stick with what you can do. So in the context of what Sergachev said, maybe that's a little bit of a red flag too. All I can go by is the words that Jeff Blashill said, the things that people who have worked with him in a professional manner have said about him. It seems like he's going to be fine. I don't think anyone's over the moon about him, but I don't think anyone thinks it's going to be a disaster either. I think it's a perfectly fine hire.
And McLovin makes the point in the chat here, says Sergachev was moved that summer and Tampa's numbers improved. defensively. And as we looked at when Blashill was brought in, and we talked about with Eric Endelson, who's a Tampa Bay Lightning insider, and as Blashill was in Tampa, his first year to the third year that he was, in charge of the defensive system and everything, the metrics and the numbers improved. Now, it could have been a whole team thing. Goaltending also plays a part in that. But as time went on, under the changes he would have made or would have been implementing, things got better defensively for the Lightning. So, I mean, changes don't always sit well with everybody, and I think you'd imagine that with a young roster, with the guys that they have, there might be a little bit of an experimenting period with this Blackhawks team where they try different assignments, different systems, different setups to maximize what they have in different players. But I'd like to think that is part of the teaching atmosphere that I think Blashill is stepping into and embracing coming into the role this year. He's not trying to, he's obviously trying to win, but it's not your job relies on wins and losses. It relies on getting the most out of these young guys and setting the table for who's going to be here and who's not.
Yeah. I don't know. I have to say I'm after as unenthused as we were with the hire of Blashill when it was rumored for a week and then officially announced. Since he's been here and since he's spoken, I've grown a little more optimistic about it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's going to be, I mean, aside from the development of the young players, Jeff Blashill will be the main story of next season.
Mm-hmm.
All right, can we make fun of the Sharks now?
Sure. What are the Sharks doing?
The Sharks are being last year's Blackhawks.
Yes, they are.
They just signed Jeff Skinner, and you have the stats handy, or you did at least.
1 year, $3 million deal for Jeff Skinner. He had, I believe it was 26 points in 72 games for the Oilers last year. His first ever trip to the postseason, he played 5 games and had 2 points.
Okay. Yesterday, they traded Henry Thrun to the Maple Leafs for Ryan Reeves.
They signed Philip Kurashev. They signed Adam Gaudette.
They claimed Nick Leddy.
They claimed Nick Leddy.
Off waivers.
They signed John Klingberg. They also signed Dmitry Orlov. And they, I believe, traded for Alex Nedeljkovic.
Yes, they did.
Good backup goalie. Good backup goalie. You got Askarov down there. Give him as much time, or give him as many games as you want.
I'm very curious as to what the plan is here, and I think like we have talked about the vibes around the Sharks, kind of jokingly at this point. Mm-hmm. They're basically doing what the Hawks did last year. Like Jeff Skinner is a fine player. Dmitry Orlov is a fine player. Nothing against these guys. Ryan Reeves is their version of Pat Maroon, right? Like, oh yeah, bring in the veteran who's a good teammate and will punch people every now and again and play 8 minutes a game and entertain the fans. Fine. Is this the year you want to potentially ruin your draft spot?
There's no way that they're not in the McKenna lottery.
Sure, they're going to be.
For sure. But this is absolutely we're sticking Band-Aids on this roster until more of these young guys step up. And I mean, I don't think it's going to ruin the vibes, so to say, of what the Sharks' aura is, to take a word from the kids.
The aura of the worst team in hockey.
Yeah, but like, it definitely is going to be like, oh, the Sharks are led by Jeff Skinner and Adam Gaudette, and like, of course you're excited about Celebrini and Will Smith.
Yeah,
sure, of course, that goes without saying. But just as, we were talking about, last season with the Hawks, it's like, yeah, well, Nazar and Bedard are exciting, but then, here comes Ilya Mikheyev, and here comes, Tyler Bertuzzi, and so people from outside the organization, outside of Chicago, outside the fan base, are like, what are they doing? Well, right back at you, Sharks. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Look at their Puckpedia is fascinating. So they have one. Logan Couture is like retiring. He's not playing anymore. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 players out of their current 22-man roster have a contract beyond this season. 7 of 22. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild. And you can't move them all at the trade deadline.
No, you wouldn't think so.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, like guys that could play this year for them, Quentin Musty could play this year.
Yeah.
Chernyshov could play this year. Is he? No, yeah, he's signed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking through like some of their. They've got a whole bunch of young guys. I don't know who they think is NHL ready.
Yeah.
Mock Madulin on defense.
Sam Dickinson.
Maybe at the end
I
of
feel
this
like
year.
he could play this year.
Yeah, he might. Is that probably a guy who could make the team, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, they've got a bright future. There's no doubt about it. Especially if they get
Lucas
Gavin
Carlson.
McKenna.
No, they're going to be in the McKenna running. Something that we were talking about. The betting before the show with Braggs and everything.
Yeah.
And I have never felt more certain about, this is hyperbole, about anything in my life.
All right.
That Gavin McKenna is going to be a Pittsburgh Penguin.
Oh, I mean,
I've never felt more certain
if you believe
that
in
he's
the
going to be a
fix,
Penguin.
That is almost too on the nose. Like that. I mean, I guess Bedard was
you
pretty
mark
on the
the
nose
tape
too.
July 11th.
Yeah.
Before he's even played a game for Penn State, which is located in Pennsylvania.
Interesting.
Which is where Pittsburgh is also located in Pennsylvania.
That's correct. Good geography by
Thank
Mario.
you. Yes, I took geography twice in college. I've never been more certain, and I want to get the quote. It was from Greg Wyshynski. I'm going to find it here, but I've never been more certain. The Penguins, they're talked about. They're the only team that's actively tanking. Well, they still got Sidney Crosby, but no, they're going to be bad. They're going to be in the McKenna running, and I fully believe that they're going to get Gavin McKenna.
Yeah, Giggity says going from Super Mario to Crosby to McKenna makes so much sense for the league.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
I want to find the.
And AKZ says would be 21 years, just like the gap between Crosby and Mario. That's crazy. I mean, yes. The Penn State thing is almost like, of course he went to Penn State. Of course he did. I don't know. They're gonna, like, the Sharks. This was
the quote from. This was the quote that like fueled this thought process a couple of days ago from The Sheet. Greg Wyshynski was on that with Jeff Merrick. We all pretty much figure that Crosby's out after Malkin's out, which is after next season. What if you have Gavin McKenna there? Would that increase the chances of Sid sticking around and retiring as a Penguin?
I mean, he had Mario Lemieux with him.
He did. He absolutely did. Crosby leaving.
Cool.
Crosby leaving Pittsburgh seems unfathomable, and the Penguins, I'm sure, would love to find a way to keep Sid around his entire career. And what better way to keep Sidney Crosby around, keep the Penguins relevant, and pass that torch to the next generation than to win the lottery and you get Gavin McKenna and you put him right there opening night next to Sidney Crosby, and boom, there's your feel-good story for the Penguins franchise. Yeah,
Crosby is 37. He's got this year and next at $8.7 million. Then he's an unrestricted free agent.
Perfect.
So does he just retire after that?
No.
Does he sign long term or do like a 2-year deal?
Left. He's got years left.
He's still gonna be effective for a long freaking time. It feels like,
especially if you pair him with Gavin McKenna, which they will.
I've
never been more certain.
91 points in 80 games for Mario Lemieux for Sidney Crosby last year.
Something to think about. throughout the summer.
It's
throughout the season.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. I mean,
I've never
just
been
order
more
your
certain.
McKenna Penguins jerseys now
Yeah.
if you want one. That's certainly gonna happen.
Hawks will get 2.
Yes. All right, we got to wrap the show up because we have to. We'll talk to everybody Monday.
Monday night? We'll talk
Monday
to you.
night. We've got our rank week happening next week. We are the first. I think we're on what, 7?
7 p.m. We will premiere the first What Ifs. Biggest What Ifs in Chicago sports history. It'll be a Blackhawks edition. We'll be in a new studio.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. We'll be there at 7 p.m. So mark your calendars for Monday's show. No mailbag, but maybe we'll do it on Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll do mailbag Tuesday. So get those questions in regardless. All right, we'll see you Monday at 7 on the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.